Ladies and gentlemen, here to talk about his latest book is Mr. Dave Barry. Thank you.
Govey is available for weddings, bar mitzvahs. Now, thank you for that introduction. I just want to clarify the toilet thing. I don't think about them all the time. I did write a number of columns back when Congress decided to switch to low-flow toilets, and I didn't realize that until I moved to a house that had them. I was upset because, now we're used to it, but young people don't realize that there was a time this country had great toilets. We had the best toilets in the world. We had toilets that could suck down a mature sheep, but now anyway, I'm not going to get too far into the toilets. I think Govey covered that pretty well. This is actually not my first visit to the Googleplex. This is my second. There are people applauding, don't know why. Maybe you were there. I'm in a band of authors called the Rock Bottom Remainders. And I think it was Amy Tan, one of our founding members, who arranged for us to come here and perform. And to those of you who were here that night, I'm sorry. But the idea of the band has been around since 1992, and the original idea was it was going to be a one-night thing. And the idea was to get a bunch of authors with musical talent together and play a show to raise money. It was during a booksellers convention for a First Amendment cause. And the only flaw in that plan was that it turns out none of the authors had any musical talent. But we enjoyed playing so much that we just kept together and we still play. As Amy once put it, I would do this to kill the whales. Although, to my knowledge, no whale has ever been killed as a result of any Remainders performance. But our genre, we call it hard listening music. And those of you who were here that night may remember I call the technique we play the rumor method of music, which is to say everybody's holding an instrument of some kind, and everybody's playing something, and then a rumor goes around that there might have been a chord change. Well, and we all switch to something else, although not the same necessarily, same something else. Anyway, so I have been here. I had a nice tour. I was impressed, as I'm sure everybody is, by this fascinating, huge, complex, mysterious operation. And I'm, of course, a Googler, a long-time user of Google. In fact, it has really changed my work habits, as I suppose most people. When I need to know something, I used to have to look it up, with an almanac or something, and now I just get on Google, and like 2 hours later, I'm looking at something completely unrelated. Thanks to you folks, I'm wasting time faster than ever before. And I do I use Google all the time. What I need, and I've said that, I need a search engine. I need a special Google that whatever I type in for search, it returns "get back to work." So if you can work on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about my book, and I was hoping to do actually a dramatic reading from it using somebody in the audience as a foil, but I'll get to that in a little. This is a book of essays, all but one of which have never appeared anywhere else. A lot of books I've written over the years are really just compilations of newspaper columns. This is not. These are original essays written for this book. But the one exception, the one that sort of started the idea in my mind of writing this book, and it's really kind of the same inspiration that inspired William Faulkner and Marcel Proust, and a colonoscopy. Now, most of you, fortunately for yourselves, are too young to have had this experience, but eventually in life you'll be advised that you need to get a colonoscopy. I went way past the time when you're supposed to get one, and I didn't get it. And then I got a call, I actually got an email from my brother Sam, who lives in San Francisco, saying that he's younger than I am, but much more responsible. And his email said he had gotten a colonoscopy, and they had found that he had cancer. And they caught it really early, and just to clear that up, he's fine now. They treated it, and he's fine. But it was quite scary. And the email said, the doctors told me that I should contact my siblings and make sure that they've been screened also. And he said, to me, he said, I'm sure you've been screened already, because I'm older than he is. And of course I hadn't. And the reason I hadn't, and it's the big fear most people have, It's the impression people have about a colonoscopy is it's going to be awful because they're going to stick a tube 17,000 feet up your butt. And they are. That's exactly what they do. In fact, the big danger of the procedure is that the tube will go out of you and enter another patient, you know. So they have a guy with an axe to cut it off in case it gets loose in the room. But it's nothing because it's a lot like the 60s. They give you drugs and you don't remember it. You don't remember any of it. When I was done, I sincerely didn't know it was done, and I felt so good. I thought, well, let's do it again. While we're, you know, that wasn't so bad. The only bad part of the actual procedure, something to keep in mind, the procedure room they had, and this is fairly common, I gather, in rooms where this kinds of procedures go on. They had music playing. I think that's supposed to relax you, and it would have, except for that when they were just putting me under with the stuff, and Dr. Sable was coming toward me with the tube, the song that came on the PA was Dancing Queen by ABBA. So that's really the last song you want to hear when a guy's coming at you with the tube and you're about to be unconscious. So anyway, ask for the non-ABBA version. The other part, and I don't want to get too graphic here, those of you who have been through this experience will know what I'm talking about. The preparation for the colonoscopy is a little bit intense because they have to clean you out pretty good. So they give you a nuclear laxative, so powerful that your bowels travel into the future, and you expel food you have not even eaten yet. If you've ever seen a space shuttle launch, that's generally the experience. So anyway, enough about that. So anyway, so I wrote an essay about that. And at the time I didn't think about writing a book of essays. I wrote a book, and it ran in the Miami Herald and a bunch of other newspapers, and it became pretty viral on the internet. I got a lot of response to that, and to this day, in fact, when I get on an airplane, people like some guy 10 rows away will go, "Dave, I got a colonoscopy," you know, which is not the best thing to have. People yelling to you, and you know, there's all the other people are wondering, why is he telling him that, you know? But so anyway, I thought that I kind of enjoyed that. I hadn't been writing a column for a while, I've been doing other things. But I kind of enjoyed writing that essay, and I enjoyed that, in fact, I could write a longer essay. When I was writing newspaper columns, they had to be about 650 words. Kind of had to keep them short. And so I came up with the idea I would write a series of essays and turn them into a book, and that's really what how this book came to be. One of the topics I talk about extensively in the book is my city. I live in Miami. I moved there in 1986 from the United States. And I always feel like sort of an ambassador for the city of Miami because it has a very poor image. Every year, the Zogby organization does a poll where they ask people what their impressions are of major metropolitan areas. Every year, Miami does poorly in this poll. The last one I saw, 67% of the respondents said that they thought of Miami as a dangerous, violent place. And that's really disturbing to me. I want to track those people down and kill them. Because it's not, I mean, it's like any other place. There's good and there's bad, but really is a wonderful city. So I wrote a chapter in the book, which is an essay in the book, which is essentially a visitor's guide to Miami, which starts out with my proposed solution to the tourism image problem, which is a new tourism promotion campaign based on the slogan, "Come back to Miami, we weren't shooting at you." And I'm talking there about what's things to do, things not to do, where to go, where not to go. My main place not to go in Miami is outdoors. That can be pretty dangerous. And also, driving is a little hazardous in Miami. When I first got there, I thought, these people don't know the law. I now realize that everybody in Miami is driving according to the law of his or her individual country of origin, you know. And apparently there's countries where it's traditional to put on that left turn signal first thing in the morning, you know. Maybe put it on the night before just to make sure it's the only place I've ever lived where the driver's manual shows you how to give the finger, you know, where people will pass you in a car wash. And in addition to with the people from all the different cultures, we have a lot of retirees driving in South Florida in the mix. Folks who I think most of them they mostly grew up in the New York area, didn't drive a lot, if at all, most of their lives, took public transportation. And then they retired, they lost the vast majority of their sight and hearing, and they moved to South Florida and got driver's licenses, which down there come with your Happy Meal. And so you have a lot of kind of oblivious drivers. I've never lived anywhere where there was a certain kind of accident happens so often. It's the kind of accident where a motorist drives into a building. Sometimes pretty darn far into the building. And it's not a building that sprang up at the last minute, you know. Building had been there sometime when the motorist arrived. And it's on the news almost every night. There's a car in a building. And the TV guy always says the same thing. The driver told police he thought his foot was on the brake when in fact it was on the accelerator, you know. We have all made that mistake, okay? But how long does it take you to figure it out? You have to wait till you're in the salad bar, you know. We had a driver, this was about, I think, the year before last. The Miami police stopped a 73-year-old man driving a Chevrolet Cobalt. Now, that in itself is not so weird, a 73-year-old man driving a Chevrolet Cobalt pulled over by police. It's where they stopped him. Runway 9, Miami International Airport. This is absolutely true. This man, without noticing it, had burst through the perimeter gates and was on the... Now, you'd think that when you see a 737 in your lane, you know you're not on Lejeune Road anymore. You know, but apparently this did not occur to this man. Police pulled him over. And the thing about that is, that's my airport. I was in that airport this morning. I can't get near a plane there with shampoo. And this man was out there with a Cobalt, you know. He must have had it in one of those clear 1-quart resealable plastic bags. So driving is not so safe. Public transportation, on the other hand, is also not necessarily safe in Miami. I can give you a couple examples. One, this happened some years ago, and it became quite well known. Some Norwegian tourists landed at Miami International Airport and got on a hotel courtesy shuttle bus to go to their hotel, and it was hijacked. They were hijacked in a hotel courtesy shuttle van, which was a big deal back in Norway, okay, where there's like no crime at all. You know, like if they had a show called CSI Norway, like the big case would involve improperly labeled herring. So this was a big deal, you know, the Norwegian. We had another case, a German tourist. This is when we got our really bad reputation abroad. A German tourist checked out of, he was staying at a hotel near the airport, and he checked out of the hotel and complained about an odor in his room. And they checked, and there was, in fact, a deceased person under the bed. And not a recently deceased person. It had been there a while. And that, again, big deal over in Germany, because they have higher standards for housekeeping over there. Like, you might find a dust bunny, but you're not going to find an old corpse under a German hotel bed. If there's a corpse under a German hotel bed, it's a fresh corpse. You can bet on it. But anyway, despite the fact that he was not charged for the extra room occupant, they made a big deal about that over there in Germany. But the public transportation, the story that to me sort of stood out most of all for the general weirdness of Miami happened last year on a thing we call the People Mover, which is a thing that moves people around. It's like a little mass transit thing in downtown Miami. What happened was two homeless guys, I believe they were homeless guys, were fishing in Biscayne Bay, which is a bay right next to the city, and they caught a 6-foot nurse shark, pretty big shark, I mean, for the bay, and they decided they wanted to sell it to a fish wholesaler. There's some fish wholesalers by the Miami River downtown, about a mile from there, and they decided the best way to get it there, public transportation. So they took this shark onto the People Mover and set it on the floor. And it really is not designed for marine life, the People Mover. Shark was not doing well, but it was still alive. And commuters got on the thing. And I know this because a woman who's a reader of my blog took a picture with her camera and emailed it to me. She said, I thought I had seen everything in Miami, but there's a shark on the People Mover, and it's not a dead shark. So we could have had fortunately, shark didn't attack anybody, but we could have had a shark attack on the People Mover, and that would have been great. That would have been maybe the single best thing that ever happened in Miami. But, well, anyway, so that's another essay. A lot of the essays in the book are about men and women and relationships between men and women. It's a subject I never get tired of writing about. And I try to answer the question, sort of fundamental question, why is it so difficult for men and women to communicate with each other? And I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I believe I've isolated the problem. Women. And so I wrote a couple chapters in there designed to answer questions that women have about men. And part of the point of this is that these aren't really questions. There's certain things women ask about men all the time, and implied in the question is the answer, and the answer is because men are idiots. So what I'm going to do is I would like to read do a little dramatic reading of one part of one essay on men and women, where I'll answer questions from women. But to do that, I need a woman to come up here and play the role of a woman. Yeah, come on up. And I'll hope that I brought it. Yep. It's exciting, huh? She's already regretting this. Okay. Let me turn this into a temporary lectern. Hi. I'm Dave, and you are?
Sufficiently female.
Yes, you are. But do you have an actual name? Like
Michelle.
Michelle.
Hi.
Okay, that's my wife's name. You're not my... No. Oh, okay. Because my God, what a coincidence that would be. Hey, this would be even better, this thing here. We'll use this thing. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. You're going to say, why is he doing this? There. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. Well, you have to stand on this side.
All right.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey.
Wow. It's true about Google being wealthy. There's two. Okay, you're going to be the red.
Okay, great.
That's good. Make sure you get right. Yeah. We still. Is she on? The woman's not on. Michelle, the woman.
Hello?
There
Okay,
we go.
awesome.
Okay,
there we go.
Okay, Michelle's going to play the part of the woman. I'll play the part of the man.
Okay.
Don't be nervous.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I'm nervous. I recently conducted a survey of women whom I selected on the scientific basis of being either one, friends of my wife, or two, on the internet. I asked these women to submit the questions that bothered them most about men. I got many, many responses, the gist of which is neatly summarized by my wife's friend Amy, who asked,
Do men realize how unfathomably stupid women think they are? And if so, why don't they do anything about it?
Note that this question has a somewhat negative tone. This was typical. Not one woman asked a question that implied men might have any positive qualities. They did not ask, how can men be so darned rational all the time? Or, what can men teach women about somehow managing to get through life with fewer than 60 pairs of shoes? Anyway, my hope is that by giving simple, straightforward answers to these women's questions using the Q&A format, I can clear up some of the misunderstandings women have about men. I'll begin with a question that many of the women asked, a question that seems to trouble women in general more than the danger of an Earth-asteroid collision.
Why don't men put the toilet seat back down after they pee?
Because they care. Wait. Human males are descended from prehistoric tribal warriors who had to defend the women and children in their tribe from vicious, savage enemy tribes who could attack at any time without warning to rape and pillage and plunder. So these early males had to be constantly vigilant. They had to pee standing up with their heads on a swivel. They could not afford to waste precious seconds aiming the pee stream or putting down the toilet seat, because the enemy might choose just that moment of distraction to strike and perform acts of vicious, savage plundering on the women and children. That was a risk these brave and courageous and manly warriors of long ago were simply unwilling to take. This same protective instinct is still deeply ingrained in men today, not that we expect any thanks.
But prehistoric tribes didn't even have toilet seats.
Exactly.
Okay, this is long. Can I hold the...
Yes.
Okay. Why don't men listen when we talk? When we want to share our feelings with you, you talk about things that are important to both of us, our children, our careers, our relationships, or when we simply share the details of a trying day to get a little sympathy. Why is it that you barely even bother to hide your lack of interest? How can you care more about some sports event on TV or some unimportant message on your cell phone when then the feelings of the person who cares about you and is always blah, blah, blah? Why is it always our responsibility to worry about blah and blah? Not to mention blah, while you're unable to spend even 2 minutes thinking about blah. Blah, 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 blah. Hello? Did you hear anything I just said?
What?
Why don't men listen to women? It's in caps.
We do listen. But we listen for specific information. Men are problem solvers. They are doers. When you talk to them, they're listening to determine A, what the problem is, and B, what they need to do about it so that they can C, resume watching ESPN. When they have the information they need, they stop listening. In the early phases of your relationship with a man, he listens to you a lot because he's trying to solve a very important problem, namely getting you to have sex with him. No matter what you talk about, your work, your friends, the fruit flies of the Ryukyu Islands, the man will pay close attention because you might give him a clue indicating how he can get you to become naked. Once he has solved this problem, he becomes more selective in his listening. He will be most alert when you talk about a specific, clearly defined problem because he can then use his reasoning skills to come up with a solution. For example, if you tell him that the car motor is making a funny noise, he will listen intently, then determine what he needs to do, namely, wait for a few days in case it goes away. But when it comes to feelings, the man is in trouble. Scientists using brain probes have determined that the average man has approximately 1 feeling per hour versus 850 for the average woman. So the man is not as comfortable with feelings as you are. When you pour out your feelings to him, he tries to figure out what the specific problem is so he can take action. But he quickly becomes confused because there doesn't seem to be a problem. He doesn't understand what you want him to do. If you tell him you don't want him to do anything, you just want him to listen to you and share his feelings in return, you only make it worse. Because at any given moment, he has just the one feeling, and it's usually something along the lines of, my balls itch. Eventually, the man concludes that for some reason you periodically have a massive internal buildup of feelings that must be released in the direction of another human being. He adopts a strategy of monitoring these releases for keywords or phrases indicating a problem that he might have something to do about, such as fire, internal bleeding, or district attorney. Otherwise, he's just hunkered down waiting for the feeling storm to blow over, maybe sneaking a peek at the sports highlights so his time is not completely wasted.
But doesn't it occur to men that because these feelings are important to somebody he cares about, they should also be important to him?
What?
Never mind. Why do men feel that they must know what's on every TV channel all the time?
Back in prehistoric times, when men had to protect their loved ones by peeing standing up, they also were responsible for feeding their families by hunting. This meant they had to be constantly scanning the environment, always searching for prey.
So you're saying that when men change channels, they're looking for prey?
No, breasts.
Why are men so obsessed with breasts?
In many species, males and females use visual cues to attract each other for the purpose of facilitating reproduction, which is necessary to avoid extinction. For example, the male peacock drags around an enormous tail, which he displays to the female peacock, who responds, "Whoa, that is some large tail you have. Let's engage in reproductive activity in the form of getting it on." Yes, she is treating the male as a sex object, but this does not bother him. He does not think, why is she so obsessed with my tail? It's just feathers, for God's sake. She can't even make eye contact with me. Why doesn't he think this? Because his brain is the size of a Cheerio. But also because he knows that unless the female becomes attracted to him, there will be no reproduction. And if there is no reproduction, then peacocks will become extinct. So he is happy to display this important visual cue to the opposite gender.
Are you suggesting that women should go around displaying their breasts to males?
I was talking about peacocks. But hey, sure.
Why do men refuse to read instructions?
As we have established, men have a lot on their plate, what with protecting their loved ones, preventing the extinction of humanity, etc. When a man purchases a necessary appliance, such as a TV with a flat screen the size of a squash court, he cannot afford to fritter away valuable minutes reading the owner's manual, especially when the first 17 pages consist of statements like, "Warning, do not test the electrical socket by sticking your tongue into it." A man does not need instructions written by and for idiots. A man already knows, based on extensive experience in the field of being male, that the way to handle an appliance is to plug all the plugs into the holes that look to be about the right size or color, then turn everything on and see what happens. This is the system I use, and it has proved to be 100% effective roughly 65% of the time. Granted, sometimes I have to make some adjustments. 2 years ago, I got a high-definition TV, and after I set it up, my wife, a woman, complained that the picture did not look like high definition to her. So I made some adjustments in the form of explaining patiently to her that she was incorrect. Because it was a high-definition TV, and therefore, by definition, the picture she was seeing on it was in high definition. For months, every time my wife watched television, she told me that the picture didn't look like high definition to her. And I had no choice but to roll my eyes in a masculine fashion to indicate that she was getting in over her technological head. Then, after we'd had the TV for about a year, she decided, you know how women get these crazy ideas, to look at the manual. She removed the plastic sheeting and began reading. And on page 28, somewhere after the warning about not using the TV as a life raft, she found a section about inputs, and she changed something, and there was a dramatic improvement in the quality of the picture. I argued that this could be coincidence. That maybe at that exact moment, the TV networks had decided to change from high definition to even higher definition. But my wife was sure it was because of what she had read in the manual. She even tried to show me the manual, but of course I could not look directly at it because of the danger that my penis would fall off.
Is that also why men refuse to ask directions?
If man A asks man B for directions, man B, realizing that man A is a weak direction-asking type of male who probably also reads owner's manuals, could decide to attack man A's village and plunder his women. Man A is not about to run that kind of risk, but there's more to it than that. Men are explorers. They do not follow the herd. If everyone says the best way to get to a certain mall is to take a certain road because that is the road the mall is located on, a man wonders if there might be another, better, as yet undiscovered route to that same mall. If Columbus, back in 1492, had taken directions from the so-called experts about how to get to India, he would never have set out in the opposite direction across the Atlantic Ocean. And today there would be no such thing as Microsoft, Dairy Queen, or syphilis.
So are you basically saying that all the things that women perceive as flaws in women are actually, women perceive as flaws in men are actually virtues, without which the human race would today be facing widespread misery, destruction, death, and possibly even extinction?
Also, no Dairy Queen.
I never realized any of this. I have to say that? Okay.
Yes.
Now I feel so guilty for all the time that we women have spent thoughtlessly carping about men. I feel terrible about our insensitivity and all the pain we must have caused you. I feel, excuse me. I feel like a small part of me just died. Excuse me, are you listening?
What? Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle. Good job. She will never volunteer for anything ever again. Oh, thank you, Michelle. That was good. You did an excellent job. You know what? Why don't we, instead of me talking, I'll take questions on anything. It could be about this book or not about this book, or if there's a problem at home you'd like to share with the group. That's why we're here.
So,
oh, wait.
Yeah, this will make it work.
Gopi's here.
So, I know this will shock you, but we have mic 3 and mic 4.
Wow.
Okay, many mics. So you can go up to the mic, identify yourself, ask a question, or post it in Drury. And the link for that is go/askdave. Okay, so people who are a little shy to ask or from other parts are going to be fire away questions.
Do you want me to answer that one, or is there some...
Let's take a question from Pablo, and then we'll switch back and forth from that.
There's this dangerous-looking set of green squares up.
Yes, you have to stand and... Because I have a switch right here.
So you started writing before the internet, and now, and so you had this dedicated audience, the newspaper column, and now you've got all of these other people like me who write things and try to be funny. Do you find you have to reach out in different ways?
What? No, I mean, I'm not sure I understand the question, to be honest. Do you know if I feel I have to write more on the internet, or is that your question?
Just do you find yourself trying to explore explore a little bit to catch that audience that's going?
Not. I mean, I like the internet. I was sort of, and I think it's here to stay. But you know, early on, I started writing a blog. I mean, it's not a real blog. It's kind of more like random links, but it's, you know, I've always sort of had a presence there that I've enjoyed. I think of that as really different from the kind of writing I do when I write a book or a newspaper column. I never think that much about, you know, reaching any particular audience. I always figure, well, if somebody else thinks this is funny, that's good enough, and we'll figure out a way to connect. To me, the internet's been good for me. I think, you know, just in sense of reaching more people, but I don't think, like, I don't have a strategy for it or anything else, to be honest. I had the most random career path in the history of writing. So, does that answer your question, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't understand your question. If
What?
you'd asked me state capitals, man, I'm there. But okay.
Okay. Your book this time is about being mature. I know a previous book was Dave Barry Turns 50.
Right.
So you're in your late 50s, I believe?
62.
What the hell are you using on your face to look so young? Living in Miami, I mean, sunblock 5,000 or?
Well, I don't know the actual number of my son. But no, I always looked young. When I was, it's good now. It was bad when I was young because I looked like I was the most hairless person in my high school. I was actually voted that. No, but they had. But so I always looked like I was in about fourth grade up through, and it was. I had a brutal social life. You know how women are always saying that what they really like in a man is a sense of humor. That was such a lie in my school because I had a sense of humor, but that's pretty much all I had. And it wasn't enough. Not that I'm bitter. I'm not bitter. Was there a question? Oh, sunblock. Probably around a 40 sunblock. I don't know.
And just sort of related to the bad social life, I didn't know that previously you had a brother named Sam.
I do.
How much teasing did you get for being Sam and Dave?
Sam and Dave, well, we were never in the same place that often, but he's referring to, there was a rhythm and blues singing act called Sam and Dave. They were actually very good. I saw Sam and Dave perform. That's how old I am. But I started writing before the internet, it was pointed out earlier. Also before electricity. Anyway, we didn't get mocked for being Sam and Dave. What's your name? Tom. Okay. I can't think of anything funny to say about that, so I'm going to let you go, Tom. Yeah.
So you were saying state capitals, North Dakota?
North Dakota would be Pierre. Or is that South Dakota?
South Dakota.
They
named the waste treatment plant.
There's really no difference between
right?
North and South Dakota. It's time somebody pointed. I once got in. I just got to say, I got in so much trouble with North Dakota once. I wrote a column. I was looking for something to write a column about once, and I came across an article in the newspaper that there had been a conference in North Dakota of all the state tourism officials and whatever, trying to figure out how they could improve the state's image, because people don't want to go to North Dakota. People don't want to stay in North Dakota when they live there. I mean, if you go to North Dakota, they'll pull you over and say, "Hey, you want to be in the legislature?" And so one of the things they talked about this conference, and this is what I wrote my column about, was they talked about, well, maybe they can improve the image of the state somehow. And one of the things they considered was changing the name of the state from North Dakota to Dakota, which is, I don't know. Would that make you want to go there suddenly instead of Hawaii? But so I wrote a column making fun of that, of North Dakota. And that was a huge mistake. If you don't learn anything else today, learn this. Do not mess with North Dakota. First of all, I got an angry letter from everybody in the state, which is nearly 115 letters. But second, and this is the really fiendish part of the North Dakota revenge scheme, they invited me up there in January and dedicated a sewage lifting station in my honor. This is absolutely true. If you go to Grand Forks, North Dakota, for any reason, such as your plane has crashed there, there is a brick building, and on it, in foot-high letters, metal letters, it says Dave Barry Lift Station number 16. Really. And inside is the equipment that lifts the sewage, which is a concept I do not understand. I would leave the sewage down there, you know. In North Dakota, they lift it. That is how bored they are. So anyway, they had this ceremony, and it's honestly the coldest I've ever been in my life. It was way below zero. And they actually got a crowd out there, and we're standing in front of, they put a brown piece of paper over the sign for the big dedication ceremony, and the mayor of Grand Forks read a proclamation very eloquently comparing my work to the production of human excrement. And at the big moment, they had me tear the piece of paper off, and I remember seeing my name on the side of this building and smelling the sewage in the cold North Dakota air and hearing whoop, 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 which is the sound of people applauding in mittens. So that was my North Dakota experience.
Well, I had a quick second question as well. Your year in review is one of the primary ways that I keep track of what happens from year to year, and I'm sure it's the same for millions of Americans.
Which is one thing that's wrong with this country.
I was wondering if you go into more detail as to how you create that. Do you save snippets throughout the year, like a giant file folder? Or?
No, I should, but the way I do it pretty much the way I got through college as an English major, which is to wait until the last minute and then take amphetamines. No. That would be so wrong. No, I don't even know where to get them anymore. But but I do it kind of all at the end. It actually takes me almost 2 weeks of pretty much nonstop. But I get a printout of all the. I do a lot of Googling during this phase of my year and get all the headlines for the year, and then I start trying to come up with jokes that can be turned into running jokes. Like I know now that at some point there's going to be an oil spill section. I just don't know what the humor part will be. Doesn't seem that funny at the moment. Yeah. My solution for that whole thing, by the way, you're probably saying, well, what should we do? We need to relocate the Gulf of Mexico. There's been nothing but problems. We've had hurricanes start there, now this oiling. Put it near some other country, you know? That's I don't really know how specifically we do that, but I'm more of a big picture guy.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other? Yes.
I've been following you a long time, and
I know, and I'm getting a restraining order.
I know. I have a 16-year-old son who thinks that I am pretty stodgy and don't know all the words that he's insisting that I learn. I wonder if you think it's safe to introduce him to your book, and how would I best do that? Can he read? Yes, he's a very good reader.
He's probably pretty familiar with the way sequentially numbered pages and all that whole book thing. I mean,
yes, he is.
I'd just give it to him and say, read this or I'll kill you. It's time you learn.
That doesn't work.
No, I know. You know what does? I tell you, I believe in parenting by embarrassing. I've said this for a long time, that the mistake that we make, I have 2 kids. The mistake you make as a parent is you try to get their love and respect. And that works great until they reach the age of 12 or 13 months. But as soon as they start to talk, you start to figure out you're a dork, you know. And by the time they're 16, they don't want to be they don't want anything to do with you. However, you develop at the same time an incredible power of embarrassment over them. It's very strong. And most parents are reluctant to use it. They think it's bad when they embarrass their children, but it's actually a very effective control technique. If you're in a public place with an adolescent child who's giving you any trouble, just don't say you're going to be grounded or something like that. Just go, there she was, just walking down. Just sing. Boy, that will stop them, whatever they're doing. If you will stop singing, they will do anything you want. All right, they will. Well, try that. Try the thing. When I found this out, my son Rob, he's now 29 years old, so I can't really do these things. But when I learned the power of embarrassment, how really strong it was, he was 13. He was in middle school. And I got a call at the Miami Herald from the Oscar Mayer Corporation saying they were bringing the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile to Miami. The Wienermobile, I'm sure you've seen, it's a giant fiberglass hot dog in a bun with a loudspeaker. Of course the Wienermobile's been here. Everybody comes to go. And there are actually 6 Wienermobiles. I don't know if you knew that. This nation leads the world in Wienermobile technology. Although Iran is developing one. But anyway, they like to get publicity for the Wienermobile, so they called me up at the Miami Herald and said, we're bringing the Wienermobile to Miami. Would you like to drive it for a day? And I said, heck yes. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to pick my son up at middle school. Because there he is in peer pressure hell, you know. And never forget when Rob came out of the school, and then there's all these moms in their minivans, and looming up behind is a really big hot dog with a loudspeaker going, "Rob Berry, please report to the Wienermobile." And I'll tell you, if a 13-year-old could suffer a heart attack, he would have, you know. And I know you're thinking, well, Dave, that was a lot of fun for you, but you scarred your child psychologically for life. Yes, but it was worth it. So maybe you can get the Wienermobile. Yeah. If you, yes?
So this was alluded to in the introduction, but will you be running again in 2012? And do you have anything in your platform other than the low flush toilets?
I'm always running in the sense of accepting contributions. I'm not that active a campaigner. Well, I think I probably will run. I think I'll be more aiming at the healthcare situation this time around. I think they missed a major opportunity to help the American public, particularly the one sector of the American public. With this recent healthcare bill, I really don't care what else we do about healthcare in this country, but we need to find a way for the medical profession to get to the prostate gland other than the way they're getting to it now. What I think we should have, we need a procedure where the doctor stands about 80 yards away and goes, "Looks good from here, Dave." That'd be the cornerstone of my candidacy. Yes?
Do you find yourself doing less self-censorship of the subject matter that you write about since you moved to the digital world from newspapers?
Definitely. That was the most limiting, was writing for newspapers, because my column ran a whole lot of newspapers, and every one of them had an editor, and every one of those editors could cut whatever he or she wanted to. Some of them very carefully went through and cut out all the funny parts, no matter what I wrote about, or left just the setups but took away all the punchlines. I once wrote a column that the joke of the column was I hadn't bothered to do any research, so I would write, as the old saying goes, a man without a woman is like a tractor without a parentheses. Editor, please put an important tractor part here. And it ran that way in most newspapers, except for one paper where the editor went through and looked up important tractor parts. I got all this mail from readers saying, "Boy, that column just didn't seem that funny, Dave." It's like, but I think, yeah, you can be much looser on the internet and in books. Although I don't know, I'm not really famous for being really rough, raw in humor, except for with my friends, and I really have so few of those. So anyway, any more? I'm really not sure what the timing is supposed to be. I don't want to. Yes.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you got your start in comedy writing.
Yeah.
And maybe what's helped you to be so successful.
I went when I got out. I was an English major, so when I got out of college, I went to Haverford College in Pennsylvania, and I got out with no useful skills whatsoever. I mean, unless kind of being able to name metaphysical poets or something. But there was I never saw an ad that said we're looking for people who can name metaphysical poets. And there were. So I went to work for a newspaper, and it was called the Daily Local News in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And that was actually the name, Daily. It sounds like the newspaper Superboy delivered, And it was one of those. It was a very small town paper, and small town news. Like if somebody would grow a zucchini that looked like Dwight Eisenhower or something, we'd take a picture of it and put it on the front page. That was big news at the Daily. We had a front page. This is not the best edited newspaper in the world. We had a front page story with the headline once, "Woman beats off would-be rapist." So anyway, but it was really good training for me. I covered everything, and I wrote obituaries. I went to school board meetings and stuff. I went to all, but while I did that, once a week I would write a column, because a little paper you can write, do whatever you want. And I had written some humor columns in high school and college. But this was actually in a real newspaper, and I liked it. I would write a column, and it would run once a week. They weren't paying me to do it, but that's what I did. When I left there to do other things, for a while I was teaching effective writing seminars to business people, which was a weird job, but it was good for me. It got me around the country. But I kept writing my column for the Daily Local News in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and they were paying me $22 a week to do that. So I was in my 30s at this point, and I didn't think of this as a career option, just write this little column. And then my son was born, and I wrote an essay about natural childbirth that ran in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And basically it was the perfect time, because I'm a baby boomer, and the baby boomers do everything together, and they always think they're the only ones who ever did it. And at this point, we were having babies, and it never occurred to us that previous generations might have done that also. It was a big deal. We had babies. And we, of course, because we're the baby boomers, we had to think of a special way to have babies, and which was called natural childbirth. They can mirror various names. The idea was that instead of, like when my mother had me, the system was they gave the mother drugs, a lot of drugs, and she woke up when you were in like 4th grade, And it was a damn good system. Everybody, but then by the time we came along, I know we had to have a better system, and our system was you wouldn't need drugs because you would, practice these relaxation techniques and breathe in a certain way. And we went to these classes where you breathe and practice and breathe. And it was, then when we actually got into the childbirth part, with a baby coming out part, don't try to tell a woman in that situation to just breathe a certain way, And be glad she doesn't have a revolver if you do, because basically they're just screaming for drugs at that point. And so it was I remember sitting there in the room listening to not only my wife, but all these other women, all going, ah, which was not what they had, So I wrote an essay about the difference between the childbirth classes and the actual childbirth. And it ran in the Philadelphia Inquirer Sunday magazine. It was the first big sale I ever had of a humor piece. And it did really, really well. Everybody, all these people my age, all the editors and all the newspapers were my age. Everybody was going through the same. They all thought it was great. And so a couple days after that ran, I got a call at home from the editor of the Chicago Tribune Sunday magazine saying, I read the piece on natural childbirth. I want to reprint it in my magazine. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Now, I had gotten paid $350, which is the most I'd ever been paid for writing something for that piece. And he says, how much do you want for it? And I think, well, I already got the $350. So I said, how about $50? And there's this pause, and he goes, how about $500? So I said, okay. If I'd have been smart, I'd have gone down to 25, and he'd have probably gone to 1,000. But I took the 5 anyway. But that was my break in 2 ways. One is that suddenly more, and after that, a whole lot of other newspapers wanted to print that. But also I discovered that this wonderful thing that you could write something and make more than $22 for it. So that really was how I got it. I think I was just lucky in several ways. I was lucky because I was, in this giant mass of humanity all going through the same experiences. And I was lucky that I came along when newspapers were strong and successful, and they had magazines, which they don't have anymore. And most of my career would not be possible now, I don't think. You have to go some other way to make it as a writer now. I don't even remember what your question was. I'll stop talking now before I get to.
So Dave, we probably have time for 2 questions. We'll take last one from the floor, and we've trained our computers to ask you some
does
questions.
He just always have a microphone on when he walks around?
This is so. No, we're all wired. The whole company is this.
That'd be so great. Yeah.
Dave, who makes you laugh?
Now a lot of I'll name a human, Roy Blunt Jr., who's in my band, and he's the funniest person I know. I just say it because I just spent a week with him. But where I think the really great humor writing is now is on television, like shows like Glee and The Office and Parks and Recreation and Community. There are all these really well-written 30 Rock, really well-written sitcoms, much better than they used to be. There was all this talk about this golden age of comedy, and there was, MASH and all that, and All in the Family. This is way, way more golden. Where we are right now is, fabulous. I don't know who they are, though. I guess I know the South Park guys, who they are, but most of them, you don't know who they are. But the shows are really, really terrifically funny. So I got to say, I get more laughs now. I'm more reliably amused now by watching television than I am by reading most things now. And I think that's kind of what happened, is people are always saying, well, where are the humor columnists of tomorrow? I said, there is no humor column for them to write. The newspapers are disappearing. Thanks to you guys. No. I don't really blame Google for that. I think that's, we're the newspaper industry is a perfect example of why you never should allow an industry to be run by English majors. But anyway, We could have handled it all differently, I think. But that's where I think they're going. That's where I think smart, funny writers go now. And it's kind of too bad because you don't know who they are. At least I don't know who they are. But I think they're really good, whoever they are. Yeah. I probably should have
take one more from.
Yeah, I'm just going to answer the ones that people call them. Yes, no, no. Okay?
We're done then. Thank you so much for joining us here. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Barry.